Good morning everyone and welcome to our new session, and our session today will be about the density. Last time we have taken the three states of matter, which was solid and liquid and gas, and today we will take all the measurements for them and how actually to measure the solid and liquid and gas. The first property is the density. Today we will take what is density and how to measure the density. Actually, the density of a matter is the amount of a mass in a given space, which means it's the amount of a mass in a given volume. So, can you remember this photo of the particles of solid and liquid and gas? Actually, the particles of solid, which is the mass of the solid, was more dense in their volume than the liquid and gas. So if you look here, you will find that particles loose or away from each other. In the liquid it's intermediate, and in the solid they are close to each other. So in gas, if you move from the gas to the solid, here is less dense and here is more dense. Okay, actually the denser an object, the less likely is to float, which means if it's dense, it's less to float. Okay, its probability to float is much lower. Okay, look at this example. A plastic ball, an empty plastic ball. Okay, it will sink or float? Think about it. Actually it will float on the water. If you fill this bowl with sand, it will sink, right? Yeah. So why when it's empty it's float, and why when it's filled with sand it sink? The volume of the bowl is the same, but we change the mass. When it's empty, like the plastic in the first example, it was empty, so it will float. And in the second, the volume is very high because we fill it with sand. So the sand has more mass than the air. Okay, so which means we have two bottles. One is filled with air and one is filled with sand. Which has more mass, the air or the sand? Actually, the sand. So the sand will sink, or the air, and the air will float. Yes, actually the density is the amount of a matter in a given space. We can measure them actually by a very simple way. We can actually divide the mass by its volume. So the density equals to mass over volume. The density is mass divided by the volume. As long as the mass is higher, so the density will be higher, so the object will be more dense than the other. Okay, so to find the density of an object, we will divide it by its volume, and the mass is in grams and the volume is in cubic centimeters, so the unit is in gram per cubic centimeter. Thank you for watching and see you next session.